Well, that's fine. Okay. All right, everybody, we are live. Dynasty Mirror Search for Uhuru. And I have the brothers Igho and Raphael on with us this afternoon. You guys are in the UK, correct? In London.
Correct.
Right. I need to get up there. I need to get to London. I need to get to London. You know, I have this I only travel to Africa mentality, but I definitely have to get to London, and I definitely have to get to Paris here shortly. But now are you both are originally from the Niger Delta, correct? Nigeria?
I am. I'm from a place called Delta State.
Delta State.
It's in Niger Delta. It's where, if you know anything about it, it's about where the main oil location in the country is, where they drill the oil.
Right.
From a culture or tribe, as you call it, called Urobo. But yeah, I'm from that region.
I need to cut you off. Now, you saw the Pan-African a wet dream video, right? Did you see that?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
Yeah.
The brother Emeka. Do you guys know him?
No. But from his name, he's Igbo. That's
okay.
As much
He swears he's not Igbo.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Where do you say he's from then?
He's from what you just said. How do you pronounce it? Yeah.
Oh, well, there are some. Okay, look at it this way. There are some Igbos who live in that area and were born in that area as well. Over time, they've lived in there, but that name is unmistakably Igbo. Yeah, it's unmistakable. I have a friend who's also from the same state, Delta State, who is Igbo.
Okay.
You know, this is all part of the whole sectioning off and creation of states and borders that sometimes you get people from a different kind of nation or culture within your own culture. So it happens. But hey, everyone's welcome anyway.
Okay. Now he's very anti-Pan-African. He's saying that Niger Delta needs to be its own state because it controls all the resources. Well, it doesn't control all the resources, but it has all of the resources as far as the oil. And of course, Nigeria obviously is exploiting it. The leaders and the people in the Niger Delta are benefiting from it. I actually watched this this documentary on Vice. You know, I know Vice at times is some bullshit. I don't know if you've seen it at all. Okay. Yeah. What are your thoughts on, you know, as far as Niger Delta being its own, I guess, country and completely separating from Nigeria? And then, of course, can you be a Niger Deltan, or if that's the correct term, and I guess protect the best interests of the Niger Delta and also be a Pan-African? Because he's saying you can't do that. What are your thoughts on that?
Okay, a couple of things. First, Niger Delta separating. I mean, in the Niger Delta itself, there are about at least 5 nations, 5 different groups. So you have the Urobo, Shekiri, Isoko, Igho. These are all people in the Niger Delta where the oil comes from. They're all separate and they all divide into different states. So to say the Niger Delta to break off means like a number of nations and states to break off, and they wouldn't all do that at the same time or together because they're pretty much independent people themselves. Where I think he's coming from, as I truly believe he's Igbo, he would be along the lines of Biafra, who want to secede. That's what it sounds like to me. Most of them sometimes don't like to come out and say Biafra, but I believe from what I'm hearing, he's Biafra, and we all know what happened with Biafra, which is, you know, they tried to secede from the country, and there was a bloody civil war between 1966 for about 2 years, around 66, and about 3 million Igbos were killed. So a lot of them, and recently there's been someone called Nnamdi Kanu, a guy who he started a radio station in the UK, and he was talking about Biafra, and he gained such a big following, and he went back to the country, and he basically rose up again this sentiment of secession, and a lot of them came out from the woodworks and want to separate. So Niger Delta themselves are not calling for secession. The Biafrans are, but they try to claim some part of the Niger Delta as also Biafra, which is not the case. But personally, what do I feel about the breakup of the country? It's a tricky one because most people I speak to don't don't agree with Nigeria disintegrating or breaking up. But what I think of, the way I envision it, I think there needs to be a restructure. So Nigeria has about 400 or so cultures or tribes or ethnicities, 400 or so. They're all independent nations in the sense of description of what a nation is. So, and then when you look across Africa, there are almost 10,000 or more different cultures and individual nations. What I believe, or what I think, what I envision is there should be 10,000 nations.
10,000.
Yeah, 10,000 nations.
That's a lot.
All under, yeah, it's a lot. But that just means 10,000 representatives into a grand super state that is Africa. So it'd be like, I don't know if you ever saw Star Wars, where one of those, where they hold their intergalactic Senate, and you see like this big, huge room with loads of seats. So I envision that sort of thing. Obviously, there'll be subcommittees and smaller entities, but I think every nation should be able to contribute and to have their own self-determination. That's what I feel.
All right, so let's jump right into it. I mean, a lot of people in the chat room say 10,000. That's a lot of nations, but let's jump right into it. The Bantu Federation. Break down to us what the Bantu Federation is.
Okay, well, Africa currently, some would say, and I would say, there are basically two predominant peoples. There's the Afro-Asiatic, and then there's the Bantu people. The Bantu people reside primarily sub-Saharan Africa. So if you look at Africa, when you see the Sahara and then where you start to see vegetation and going down, that's where most of our population are. Some say they originate from Congo directly. Some say from Nigeria, between the border of Nigeria and Cameroon.
Right.
But they spread out across that region, and pretty much all of us are Bantu, Black sub-Saharan Africans. So obviously the spread or the disbursement of all of us due to different wars, famine, colonialism, slavery, has caused us to disperse, form new languages, new cultures, etc., etc. So I feel with this drive now, with the African Union breaking down borders, making a continental free trade zone, giving visa-less travel to everyone, is sort of trying to bring everyone back together. And I'm thinking, I'm looking into the future, and what I'm seeing is soon there would be no Nigeria or Cameroon or Ghana anymore. They're all going to be just open, and all you have left is your ethnic nationality that feeds into a greater Africanism. So there'll just be two steps. There wouldn't be I'm Igbo and then I'm Nigerian and then I'm West African and then I'm African.
Right.
Just Igbo and then African.
Let me so I won't forget. And then please, and I'm sorry for cutting you off. Where would religion play into this? Because you know, with Africans, it's not only I'm an Igbo, Nigerian, Niger Deltan, West African, then is I'm a Christian, Muslim, or whatnot. But finish your thought, and we'll go ahead and throw that piece into it as well.
Okay, so yeah, you know, there's already ECOWAS, which is the West African type of regional body or state, and they're already thinking of making a currency, possibly called the ECO. And in West Africa or East Africa, they're already trying to make an East African community as well, which they're going to dissolve about 6 countries into that state. So we can see that this is taking shape, it's taking form. And I'm just looking into the future, and I'm thinking, what would take the place of the African Union then? And it will only make sense for it to be this Bantu Federation that I'm talking about. That's an identity that everyone can say we have a common, unified existence with, one that would help to bring us together and get rid of any other similarity or divisions like Christianity or Islam. And to go to Christianity and Islam, I think a renaissance has to take shape and happen. I personally would like the death and the end of religion being at the forefront of anything to do with Africa or African peoples. It has done nothing for us than impoverish, enslave, and break our minds into not having a sense of self. So I think religion is the last shackle that we have to break in order for us to get free.
I agree. Now, how can a Bantu Federation benefit us versus an African Union? Like what's the I guess the pros of having a Bantu Federation over, we'll say, was it currently in place, like the African Union?
It'd be more efficient. We'll have more of a vision and a direction. Right now, the African Union is just it's inefficient. They don't think far ahead. I think that the policy they have going forward now is something called Agenda 2063. So they're not thinking past 2063, whereas other nations like the United States, they think 200 years ahead. We need to be thinking way, way, way ahead. I think the African Union is corrupt. They don't have people with any vision. We've seen what happened with the slave trade in Libya. You didn't hear a peep from anyone in particular, or just one or two people. We have the agenda of the African Union is not to unite the whole of Africa worldwide, whereas I believe the Bantu Federation can. We saw Haiti trying to join the African Union, and they were rejected by
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I just wonder what that was. Go ahead.
Yeah. So Haiti trying to join the African Union, and they were rejected. And I think that's just a big shame. And it just begs the question, what they're doing there.
It's like an echo. Somebody.
It's not me.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I just question what the mandate is for the African Union, because it's definitely not to unite or to take us back to greatness. It's just to, from what I see, it's just to build these business models for foreign Western powers to be able to do business easier or with more ease on the continent. But it's not for the people. We have countries buying up vast swathes of land to be able to set up their businesses, build factories, and bring their workers there. And then they sit there and they let this happen. But when you give it down to the people, one thing the Bantu Federation would definitely allow is it's going to allow power to be at the local level, not at the center, as governments or countries have it right now. Right now, you'd only have the central government of the whole continent, and then individuals will be able to govern themselves at a lower level, not have to fight over resources with different people or various groups in the country. And also, you can be able to form alliances as you see fit. So say someone, an Igbo person, can want to form a treaty or an alliance with someone in Kenya, whereas now you would have to do it through the agreement of the country of Nigeria, whereas now, where in the Bantu Federation, you can just form an alliance with them and form a mini community to do business, if that's the way you see fit. And it would be a very flexible, fluid relationship going across the continent.
So someone asked a great question in the chat room. Arabs, I'm guessing Ethiopians, Eritreans, Somalians. When it comes to the Bantu Federation, what role would they play?
Well, Ethiopians, they would. Oh, I see, because they're Afro-Asiatic.
They don't consider themselves Bantu.
They don't consider themselves Bantu.
From what I understand.
That's true. Not all of them are Bantu. In fact, most of them aren't Bantu. From what I see is a lot of them have a split allegiance, because currently the groups in the north of Africa have an alliance with the Arab League. So I don't understand how you can have an African Union and then you can have some countries with the African Union and then with the Arab League. So they would have to prove their allegiance, and they would have to leave the Arab League, and there would have to be some concessions made if they were to join. But initially, the Bantu Federation would be only for Bantu, because as it stands, or anyway, there's a two-state Africa. There is Northern Hemispheric Africa, which is Arab, and Sub-Saharan, which is not. So that hasn't changed. It's not up to us to change it for them. They have to prove their worth, just like how Morocco was trying to join ECOWAS, West Africa, and they weren't allowed. because you can't be part of an Arab League.
I didn't. You know what? That makes sense now. Okay, why weren't they allowed? Because they are Arab, I guess, or identify as Arabs before Africans, or
No. I mean, it was put merely on business terms. Nigeria was the one who really blocked that move, because it was economic, because they didn't want European goods which come in through Morocco would flood the West African Union, and then obviously Nigeria being the biggest player in West Africa, it would affect their economy. So I think that's what I believe is the real reason.
Okay. I have the other two brothers on mute right now because there was just a lot of noise in the background. But whenever you guys are ready to join in,
can you hear me now?
Yeah, I hear you now. Go ahead.
Good. Hey guys, this is George. I'm the brother to Igho in this situation. We discuss these kind of things very often. Mm-hmm. I have my own stance on these situations, especially this subject. Just a background quickly. I'm born in Britain, Ghanaian background, raised in a Nigerian background, also from the Niger Delta, also. So I've got perspectives on different angles. The way Igho has put this this idea actually comes across quite well and quite well scripted. Not in a bad way, but it comes across very nicely and stuff. The thing I have an issue with is the idea that tribes running themselves, because I feel to some degree, and I'll throw it to you guys as well, that not all tribes are on the same level in terms of their development. If they were, then these ideas could run fine. But what you will find that obviously we give a lot of terms and names to these people, and we call them this group, that group, you know, kind of thing. But in actuality now, they, for any group of people to manage themselves or to do anything with themselves, they need to be at a certain level to really do that. So let's say, for instance, you said these guys, a bunch of guys to start. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you fine. It was
okay. Okay, let's say now, just put it in context. Let's say, okay, we want to take some people from New York and people from Brooklyn, to now manage themselves. Like, if you see people from Brooklyn, because they're all from Brooklyn, they'll talk like Brooklyn people, so they're gonna manage themselves. They're gonna be able to be doctors. They're gonna be like, they're gonna know how to do law. Like, all these things are things that develop out of like larger experienced civilizations and groups of people. It can't come from like pockets of just groups of people, but really through the experiences of many people, and that accumulates to the information we have now, and you see how the world is running now. So when like if we talk about African countries, having their own chance to run themselves, I always ask the question is, what indications have you seen from any of the groups, really, any of the major groups, that they can run themselves? Are the Igbos, for instance, fully fled, writing their own languages, writing books in their own languages? Are they teaching their kids, and then somehow Nigeria is holding them back from doing this stuff? No, they're not. Igbos are not going out their way to make sure all the children can speak Igbo, all the children can write Igbo, or they're pervading a type of thinking which is only coming from Igbo backgrounds. If you were teaching someone, okay, I'll change it over again, a Yoruba person, what is a Yoruba business language? What is Yoruba business methodology? You probably wouldn't find much about it. You would find maybe a Nigerian methodology, but you wouldn't find a specific one to a group. So how can we now start discussing people should go and have their own time when they don't have, they're not there yet? That was my point. So the question is what will be the indications to say that these groups can look after themselves?
Okay, you know what? If I could just come in,
go ahead.
You say they're not there yet, even though I don't agree with that. But then, how would you ever get there if you don't start? How would you ever get there? Israel, how many million people are in Israel?
I don't
There,
know. Maybe,
there are almost
maybe 10
30 million Yoruba people, 30 million. Even Orobo, my group, which is not one of the largest, we're 5 million. Some countries aren't even 5 million. So, so the excuse or the reasoning that there's not enough large of a group doesn't hold any water at all.
Oh, that is true. That is true. And when you say it like that, once again, that's a very good point. Then I would then say that, okay, this is actually with the other conversation we saw before with the Pan-African wet dream thing conversation. Like, I was always asking, like, okay, as much as it's important to have the chance for these groups to grow now, yeah, I would think that it's more important that Africans grow. Okay, would this move actually speed up the improvement of Africans in general by doing this?
Yes.
You
Yes.
say
because now no one's fending for themselves. There's something called a Garden of Eden syndrome. People have just pretty much taken their foot off the gas because there's just been oil and there's been natural resources everywhere. So people just literally just mine the oil, sell it out, and that's it. They haven't had to do anything else. But when you take that away, then you have to now start thinking and engaging and creating things, and it's happening already. There's the media organizations. There's a movie. There's cinema. There's all of the types of allied industries that are sprouting up, and it will take time, and it will get there. Look at Kenya with M-Pesa, which even the West can do, right, with their phone technology and payments. So it will happen. It's just a matter of time. But you can't say we're not as advanced, therefore we shouldn't do it. We only get advanced when we start doing it. It's just as simple as that.
so. I mean, what you're saying, bro, I definitely understand what you're saying, but my question is how long would it take? How long do you think it would take? And also, what indications are you seeing that lets you know that this is now is the time to do this, or when would even be, or when would be a time to do this?
I'll tell you, all the people in the diaspora and what they're doing. There's people in every strata and every sector of every industry, everywhere across the world. You can't go anywhere in the UK. There are Nigerians that are surgeons, doctors, artists, actors, engineers, technicians, neuroscientists. They're the same people. The same people. So you can't tell me that they're not ready. It's just because they don't have the opportunity and the facilities. That's all.
But you're talking about.
It's nothing to do with the mind.
But you're talking about a people. But the original conversation is about a group, a cultural ethnic group. The people, for sure, different brands of people.
I don't call them groups. They're nations. They're nations. They're not small groups. They're nations. The definition of what a nation is: people of similar cultural values, language, belief system, whatever. All that means a nation. They're nations. They're not tribes or ethnic groups. They're nations. That's what a nation is.
These differences between the nations. Sorry, go on.
I was going to ask, after I ask, and you can finish your statement. Can another person come on? Can a Mecca come on? It's up to you guys.
That's Namdi.
It's up to you guys.
Go ahead. Go on.
Okay. All right. Go ahead and continue. And then John, are you still muted? The other brother.
Can you hear me?
Okay, we hear you now. Okay, good. Just want to make sure you're still there. But guys, go ahead and continue.
Oh, you know what? Also, I thought about as well. Actually, was the fact that okay, so you split up into a group, for instance. Now, yeah, it was more okay. So my real thought was about how do you foster intelligence within these groups? So, for instance, yeah, like a smart person is born anywhere. It doesn't matter where you're born. You're born as a smart person, right? Okay. The person can be born in a piece of land. It can be born in the east. Another smart person can be born in the west, right? If these two people, for instance, one would end up being okay, let's make it easier. Kenyan, and another person happened to be in a cultural group, which is Ashanti, for instance. Yeah, how would they link up? You know, to bring it down to a country level, let's say for instance, if you're in Ghana and the person is in the bottom half and we've now split up the regions now. Okay, we now have Ashanti regions and we now have Brongo-Hafro regions, yeah? The smart child in Brongo-Hafro and the smart child in Ashanti, how would they ever meet up to a point that they could then begin to actually utilize this intelligence to better the lifestyles of people? You would end up having to have centralized points where people would go maybe to university or go to work. But then you're saying they'll be in different countries then. They'll be in different nations. They're not different nations, but they'll be in like, it'd have to be some kind of a sharing zone or something like that. Like a sharing space. You're not going to have the person from Brongo-Hafro come down to a Ashanti region to then live there and stay there. That would defeat the whole purpose of the split up in the first place. So how do you feel to address the opportunity you're taking away for people to actually, who are smart, to link up together? Because this is what you're finding in major countries, you know, the Americas and so forth and the other, that people who are smart have the opportunity to link up together and do great things.
Okay, let me answer that quickly so I can let John come on.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is this is the opposite of that. When you're breaking it down and opening it up, then it's easier for people to link up. People to go and speak.
And I mean, in regardless, sorry to cut you off. I mean, what we're doing right now via the World Wide Web, I mean, that you know, platforms like this make it easier to facilitate intellectual discussions like we're having now amongst everybody across the continent. Go ahead. I'm sorry. But
that's true. That's true. And do you know why it makes it easier? We got the internet, and obviously that's the main basis of it. Another basis is that we also speak in English. If we weren't speaking English, we couldn't even talk right now, probably. Correct. You'd either have to learn what I'm speaking, or you have to learn what I'm speaking for us to communicate. And one of us would lose our ability to fully communicate what we're saying because we speak different languages.
I would say this, you know, unfortunately, you know, the English, the language of the colonializer, is the dominant language that's spoken across this planet. But people who are educated, especially Africans who are educated, the majority of them speak English. So I don't think that would be an issue in regards to communication.
So then you're saying that we would then, I mean, I'm only hashing out this idea, isn't it? Really, I like it. I think it's a nice idea, but I'm just trying to work out some of the pitfalls that I'm seeing in the thought patterns. So we are now in our own countries. We're all speaking our own languages, right? We're now going to find our medium language to communicate between each other is going to be English.
No. Okay. I would say.
Let me come in.
I would make the medium language Swahili. But for the time, I'm just saying,
let me.
Since the majority of, I would say, Black people on this planet speak English, we could start with English until everyone learns one central language, whatever that language might be.
Okay.
Let me come in. At least listen to the conversation back and forth. I think the fundamental questions we need to ask ourselves is, how do nations form? How do nations form? We all speak English on this platform. How did English become the predominant language in the world? English and French, how did they become the predominant language? It was by conquest. And the same thing also pertains when you're looking at it from Africa. Okay, the same thing pertains when you look at it from Africa. There are different languages that are being spoken across the continent. You made mention of Swahili, but a lot of people don't know that Swahili equally has Arab origins as well. So there's a fusion between languages in East Africa and Arabic language that fused together. That fusion led to the emergence of Swahili, which is spoken predominantly in East Africa. Okay. So if we're looking at languages from that perspective, we equally have to look at the way languages were formed and how it leads to nationhood as well. There are numerous examples I can give. There are numerous examples on how people can come together, because I think that it's about nationalism. Think about an ideology, about a group of people, regardless of their social or ethnic or tribal background coming together for a belief. Might be nationalistic, it might be Pan-African, whatever. Both of them agreeing to come together. We saw it in South Africa during the times of them Shaka Zulu, and how it was able to annex a lot of the lands in Southern Africa and made those lands begin to speak Xhosa, or even though they don't speak Xhosa, they speak languages that had certain tributaries with the Xhosa language, or is it the Igbas in West Africa, or in what we today know as Nigeria, who had running battles with the Benins and the Dahomes in Togo, that took Yoruba language across its origin from Nigeria to other parts of West Africa, or is it the Ashanti? So we've seen how language is spread and how it has been used as a tool to bring people together and as a tool for a common ideology. There is a crisis now raging in Cameroon, predominantly in southern Cameroon, by a group or multiplicity of ethnic group that speak English, and collectively they identify themselves as Anglophones.
Yes,
that's what they call themselves. They call themselves Anglophones. Okay, so they don't see themselves in terms of, if you want to look at it from an ethnic or social anthropological point of view, they don't see themselves as brothers with their francophone speaking neighbors, even though they share the same country with them. The majority of the people in Cameroon speak French, but this tiny elite of people who are predominantly in the southern part of Cameroon speak Anglophone. So in terms of ethnicity, they identify themselves with other people, including ourselves here on this forum, who speak English. Okay, so I think that we need to look at it from that perspective. The strong would always dominate the weak, so we will not always have a multiplicity of different languages, or we would have to agree on a particular language, and that has to be either agreed or something that has to be enforced. Sadly,
okay.
That's great.
Real quick, I just want to make an announcement. Everybody, thank you for joining us. Please get the likes up as you enter the chat room. Share, like, super chat if you can. Also, brother Emeka is also in the chat. Emeka, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, but brother, go.
Can you hear me?
Okay, good, brother. Go ahead and finish what you're gonna say, and then Emeka, you could come on and give your thoughts on everything.
Okay, I was going to say, with regards to the language, what we can do, and I can see some people are saying, is there any point in adopting, say, Swahili, or just keep it English? But I wanted to give another angle, because in Indonesia, some time ago, when they got their independence and they wanted to unify the people, they created a language. They actually hired experts, language experts, to take bits and pieces of the different cultures or tribes, if you'd call it, and they merged it and created a language that they all use till this day. So that's something that could happen. It could be a bit of Swahili, a bit of Twi, a bit of Yoruba, on just decide on one language, teach it in the schools for 60 years, and everyone will know it for sure. So there are many ways to do it. I mean, in Nigeria, they insist on 3 languages, which is Yoruba, Igbo, Hausa, whereas they're like probably 300 plus. That doesn't make sense. So you should be able to pick and choose or decide on one that we could all use. Unfortunately, for now, it's just English.
Oh, cool. All right, Emeka, how do you feel about the discussion we're having?
Good evening, gentlemen. I joined in late, so I didn't catch up with everything, but
Emeka is the brother from the Niger Delta who believes in separation at all costs, which I don't agree with, but that's how he feels.
yes, I'm a separatist.
I did.
This is one for Namdi.
Excuse me?
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Go ahead. Go ahead. I said this is one for Namdi, my friend. Never mind. Go ahead.
Okay. So anyway, I think we Africans were making a big mistake. We don't even know what nations mean. In Europe, the first nations were England and France. Due to the fact that they had these feudal systems, the Duke of Normandy William the Bastard became William the Conqueror of England, and later on, the Plantagenet family were dukes of Normandy and kings of England at the same time, which led to the 100 Years' War later. And they had French people fighting other French people in the name of feudal overlords and feudal royal systems. So after the 100 Years' War, they had this nationalist mindset of, why should I fight my fellow Frenchman? Why should I fight him because of an English lord? My English lord speaks a different language, and I am fighting my fellow Frenchman because he's the overlord in my area. And that is how nationalism was born in Europe, for example. People understood that linguistic, ethnic, and cultural homogeneity is of utmost importance to have a functioning nation. A nation is a group of people that have same cultural heritage roots, linguistic roots, history, and all this. So I know that you guys are Pan-Africanists. I was once a Pan-Africanist, and I'm a realist today. Pan-Africanism is more of idealism. Realism does not permit me to further believe in Pan-Africanism for various reasons. We have seen the way Nigeria has failed, and we continue to fail as long as it remains in the status quo. Even the restructuring we're talking about in Nigeria is not going to work, because you can't restructure people with a 7th century mindset in the north and other areas. So we have different values, different value systems. We have some areas that have monarchies in the west. In the Midwest, we have them also in the Fulani caliphates. We have more democratic value systems in the south in the Niger Delta, and it's quite impossible to even think of creating some form of harmony in this kind of a diverse and heterogeneous habitat. Nigeria is more diverse than Europe. Nigeria is more diverse than Europe. Let us tell ourselves the truth.
How can Nigeria be more diverse than Europe?
Yes, it is, because Nigeria.
Yeah, can I like Igho mentioned.
And Mecca, let him respond. And Mecca, let him respond. All right, go ahead.
Okay, like Igho mentioned, this is one area I'm definitely very passionate about. Yeah, but I'll just quickly respond quickly. There is this myth about this homogeneity that exists in Europe, that existed in Europe, and that created the basis for the nationalism that swept Europe in the 16th century. Europe has never been, none of the European states that we see today has never been nationalistic or homogeneous. England, where I reside, was never homogeneous. The Romans named England Britain. That was the original Latin name they gave to them. Because of the different tribes that existed there, they felt that those tribes were largely ignorant, and they named them brutes. After a while, the tribes that we today know, Europeans don't like to use the word tribe or ethnic group, that those words are now reserved for African. The tribes that existed in England, the Anglophones, the Anglo-Saxons, began to now interbreed or intermarry with their Saxons neighbor across the French Canal. In the French Canal. So we now had a fusion of ethnic groups, which we today know as the Anglo-Saxon. Okay, so England has never even been homogeneous. We have the same thing in modern day Russia. Russia today that we know that we see today was never a homogeneous state. It is a fusion of two major ethnic groups, the Vikings and the Slavs. The Slavs are mostly from Eastern European countries, so Slovenia and the Czech Republic, and then Croatia. Even Germany that we see today wasn't homogeneous. They were a fusion of different ethnic groups, the Goths and the Visigoths. These are the two major ethnic groups that led to the fall of the Roman Empire. So Europe has never been homogeneous. Even in the United States, there were different ethnic groups that settled in the US. You had the Native Americans. You had the Dutch who settled in predominantly New York. You had the English who settled in Massachusetts. You had the Eastern Europeans who settled in the areas where there was the areas where the likes of Andrew Carnegie began to build the U.S. Steel. You had the Spanish who settled down in what we today known as Texas. We have the Germans who settled down in areas like in Minnesota. So all these different European ethnic groups came together under one leader called George Washington, and they formed a nation known as the United States that we all know today. So the concept of the fact that because we have different African countries who have different ethnic background, including Nigeria, cannot be a nation, I don't tend to agree with that. I am from the Niger Delta myself, but I believe that nationalism is an ideology that is built. Nationalism is an ideology that is built. I went to Turkey. Let me just quickly round up this. I went to Turkey not too long ago, and I began to research about the origins of Turkey. Turkey used to be known as the Ottoman Empire, and there were different ethnic groups that existed in Turkey. You had the Christians from the Byzantine, you had the Greeks, you had the Cypriots, then you had the Arabs who came from the other parts of the Mediterranean, who settled in modern-day Turkey. All these people formed what we today know as the Republic of Turkey, under one leader who we today know as the Ataturk. The international airport in Istanbul is named after him. Again, a multiplicity of different ethnic groups from different backgrounds, from different religion even. They came together to form one country that we today known as Turkey. I agree with you on one angle, which is nationalism was the ideology that the Europeans and other countries used to overthrow their overlord, i.e. their monarchy or their feudal leaders. So I agree with you with that, but nationalism is an ideology that we can use to bring our people together. Nationalism and Pan-Africanism.
What do I have to do with Islamic Hetzman, for example, in the north? What connects me with him? He believes in a sultan, in an emir. He believes the word of the emir is sacrosanct. I have a council of chiefs in Yaourt land. He is a Muslim. I'm a Christian. He has a different value system. The way his education, everything is different from me. Everything is different. How will you say which nationalism? Where is the common ground?
That's a good question. What will be the common ground? Go ahead, brother. Well, we're black. That's number one. But go ahead.
That is enough.
Oh, there we go. That's enough. That's what I'm saying. That's enough.
That's what I don't understand. Like you like if we're pushing for these things, I get it because well in the Niger Delta case, it's all about this oil. That's what it's about. It's not because I want to drive on the left side.
Let him finish.
It's not to do with things like I want to drive on the right side of the road, or I believe that the way they do toilets is incorrect in Nigeria, so I want to do it this way. It's nothing to do with that. It's just about this oil thing and this money stuff. Because if it wasn't for these things, they're pushing for what? Because what ideologies or what things do the Niger Delta have? I'm not putting down the Niger Delta, but I'm just saying, really, what things do Niger Delta have that they need to try and if they had their own time and their own way to purvey, they would. What things would they are they being stopped from doing? What things are Niger Deltas being stopped from doing? Other than running themselves, what things, what improvements can they not embark on that Nigerians are stopping them from doing?
The problem is this. The problem is simple. Pan-Africanism, the ideology of Pan-Africanism, the bandwidth in Nigeria is very low. Okay? So from the foundation, we missed it. Nigeria missed the opportunity to build upon that foundation. So and the result of which we created a multiplicity of ethnic groups who have allegiance only to their own ethnic group and their own region. Whereas we have in other African countries, including Ghana, including Tanzania. I mean, if you read this book, The Destruction of Black Civilization, authored by Dr. Chancellor Williams, you will see how it chronicles how the country named Tanzania was formed. Tanzania is a country that has a Christians, Muslims, and different ethnic groups who settled there. But one man named Julius Nyerere fought to bring that country together. Today, all Tanzanians see themselves as one. They don't see themselves on the basis of ethnicity.
That's true. That's true.
They don't see themselves like, oh, I'm this from this tribe, I'm from that tribe. It's the same thing with the same thing Ghana, Nkrumah did in Ghana. He broke down all those ethnic barriers and brought the country together. We saw the same thing with Kwame Ture in Guinea. We saw the same thing in Kenya under Jomo Kenyatta. We saw the same thing in Egypt under Gamal Abdel Nasser. These were leaders who brought down the differences between their country and brought them together. But unfortunately, in some African countries, including Nigeria, they did not get that foundation right. This is the reason why the average Nigerian cannot understand. I was discussing with Igho earlier on, and I was saying the bandwidth for Pan-Africanism in Nigeria is very low. It's lower than even most part of Africa. A lot of people don't know that.
Non-existent, not even low. Non-existent.
It's lower. So people have their loyalty to their tribe and their ethnic group and their religion. That's what they have their own loyalty to.
What's wrong with that?
There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. But on the basis of what? I don't think, well, this is just my own point of view. I don't think if you're looking long term on how we're going to bring the people across the continent and in the diaspora together, I don't think that's the way to go. Because we'll find a situation whereby we're gonna say, oh, I'm Yoruba, he's not Yoruba. Then we'll begin to look at it from that lens. And I was listening to a video, a speech a leading Pan-Africanist said in the US recently. He talked about the differences between African nationalism and Pan-Africanism. I think we need to understand the differences between both of them. African nationalism and Pan-Africanism, and even if you want to break it down further, ethnic identity, ethnic loyalty, ethnic nationalism, which is what we see first in unfortunately countries. Yeah.
All right, Emeka, go ahead and respond, Emeka.
Someone said the Niger Delta this and that. Yes, it's about oil, and so what? Nigeria is like.
Oh, come on, man.
No.
That's not a way. That's not a reason to start breaking up a country then and having all this conversation.
Who created that country? You call yourself a Pan-Africanist and you are promoting a British product, a British trade zone? Come on.
Hold on. What's a British product? What's British?
Nigeria is a British trade zone.
Okay.
It's a British trade zone created by Frederick Lugard, Flora Shaw, owned by the Royal Niger Company, which is today's Unilever. And Nigeria was created by white people in London. The name was created by white people in London. You're still trying to promote a colonial product? I mean, come on. This is the first thing. That's ridiculous. Secondly, Nigeria is a liability.
Okay, no, that one I understand. That one I understand. Go on.
Nigeria is a liability to my region. Nigeria is a liability to the Niger Delta. We never need Nigeria, but Nigeria needs us. That's the first thing. Everybody knows this, because 90% of the budget comes from us. In my own village,
I agree.
I have oil. They're paying my cousins 30,000 naira, which is not up to 100 even, just to do some rubbish staff work. Why they bring in people from the west of Nigeria to earn fat dollars with foreign expats. A lot of injustice in our region. Headquarters in Lagos.
I agree. There's a lot of injustice.
Headquarters in Lagos, while the oil is from our place. We built Lagos with our money. We built Abuja with our money. We built Kano with our money. Yet there's nothing in our place. We don't need Nigeria. Nigeria needs us. So, how can, in German it's called der Schwanz kann nicht mit dem Hund wackeln. How can the tail be shaking the dog instead of the dog to be shaking the tail? So let's be very honest. Yes, you might call it a selfish reason, but self-preservation is very important and it's a human instinct. So why should we continue, for me, my people, and for my region, my own region, to continue to sacrifice and suffer in the name of unity? And why should I talk about a nationalist agenda, a pan-Nigerian agenda, when I'm suffering in this pan-Nigerian agenda? I've been deceiving myself, talking about one Nigeria, displeasing myself, displeasing my people, trying to please other people that don't value us. So it is time for us to please ourselves, please my people, please my region. This is the age of nationalism. It has been kicked off. There's no going back. Europe went through this when the Ottoman Empire broke, when the Austro-Hungarian Empire broke. You saw the different nations, Czech, Slovakia, Hungary, Moldavia, all these nations came out and they are all peaceful now. So we have this mega colossus, Nigeria, a big sick man, just like the Ottoman Empire was a big sick man. And today we have Bulgaria, Serbia, Montenegro, all these from the Ottoman Empire. And that is how Nigeria is going to break up. And we're going to have more, maybe not absolutely homogeneous, but more homogeneous nations according to cultural, linguistic, at least religious background as well.
Can I ask a question to the panel? Do you think what a Mecca is proposing, is it selfish in regards to the resources of the Niger Delta only benefiting the Niger Delta and staying within the confines of the Niger Delta?
It's not selfish. It's I actually support the idea.
Okay.
It's actually right because the resources from the Niger Delta has been used to exploit the people there. I mean, you only need to visit the Niger Delta to see the level of poverty.
Somebody's echoing if in the background. If you're watching the replay, if you can just mute that the other the screen or the live stream that if you're watching it.
Yeah, so he's actually right when he said the resources in the Niger Delta has not been used for the full benefit of the people residing in that region. It's been largely used to exploit the people living in that region. So I totally agree with him on that. But I think that there are solutions to the problems of that. One of the problems Nigeria has is that the country doesn't, even though the current structure was supposed to be modeled to operate as a true federalist state, where each of the components are supposed to be autonomous in how they generate their own revenue. That is sadly not the case. So it's a democratic country, but still has military infrastructure.
Real quick, brother. Somebody, if you're watching the replay on YouTube, outside of the, I guess, the Google Hangouts, if you could, I guess, mute it, because it's you can hear the replay in the background.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Hello.
Yeah.
It's. Oh, just continue. It's maybe somebody can turn their speakers down or.
Yeah. But what I just wanted to mention to Emeka was that there are solutions that can be preferred to address the injustice there. He talked about the Austrian-Hungarian Empire and how the Austrian-Hungarian Empire broke down. But I just wanted to point out to him that the reason why the Austrian-Hungarian Empire broke down was because the Serbians, there were Serbian nationalists living within Austrian-Hungarian Empire who wanted autonomy, who wanted control on how the resources in their own region was being managed. But the Duke of the Archduke Ferdinand and his princess were opposed to granting regions within the Austrian-Hungarian Empire autonomy. So that was one of the reasons why the Austrian-Hungarian Empire collapsed. Its refusal to change with the changing times. Its refusal to grant autonomy to the various regions. He talked about the fact that Nigeria is a British creation. I agree with him, okay? But he also has to remember that Britain today is a Roman creation. It was a creation by the Roman Empire. Yeah, the name Britain, I mentioned earlier on, the name Britain is Roman. It's not even English. It's Roman. They gave them that name. And Britain, if you don't know, in Latin means brute, people who are foolish, land of foolish people. Because the Romans felt that the people who were living in Britain were fools. They had no use for them. In short, another word for fools is barbarians. Those are the words that the Romans used to describe people who were living in England and Wales.
Hold on one second, brother. Brother Igho, I think it's you. You have to mute yourself. It's the background noise is coming from on your end.
Oh, really? I don't have the video on.
Yeah, but for some reason it's still coming from your end. I don't know why. But if you mute it, and then when you want to come on, you can unmute it.
Okay, I'll do that.
Okay, go ahead, brother.
Yeah, so the solution, I think, to addressing the injustices, and not just only in Nigeria. Okay, I want to point this out because for our viewers who are watching from around the world and around the continent, it's not just. I mentioned earlier on to yourself, Uhuru, about what was going on in Ethiopia, or how the Tigrans in Ethiopia were essentially controlling the resources in Ethiopia to the detriment of the Romos, who accounts for about 40% of the population. So you have the Tigrans taking over the land, the resources, and all the political and economic appointments to the detriment of the Romos. Okay? The Romans have been protesting just the way you see people in the Niger Delta. But in the case of the Niger Delta, it's even gone worse. People are taking out, kidnapping, and other kinds of environmental degradation has taken place. So this problem that we see in Nigeria is a microcosm of what we see happening across the continent, even in southern Cameroon as well. Okay, these are the people who, at the point when they had their referendum in 1961, they chose to succeed from Nigeria and join Cameroon. And one of the reasons why they chose to succeed and join Cameroon was because the then president of Cameroon promised that they were going to give them autonomy when they merge with Cameroon. But that didn't happen. As they began to go through the birth of a new nation, that formal agreement broke down. So again, we are seeing rather at different parts of the continent, regions who are clamoring for more autonomy on how their resources is being run. And because the authorities are not listening to them, they are demanding for their own nation states.
It's true. This is true.
So can I say something on Austria?
Hold on, let the brother
Yeah, finish. You can make his point. Yeah.
Let the brother Emeka go ahead and make your point, and brother Igho, you can come on in. Is that all right, brother Igho? That's cool. Okay, Emeka, go ahead and finish your point, and brother Igho will come in.
Well, we have one problem: people disrespecting ethnic nationalities within Nigeria. I mean, okay, in the Austrian Hungarian setup, the Austrians and Hungarians saw themselves as overlords over the entire region, and they didn't want to give this other Slavic nations their own autonomous setting. So they were like, okay, we have Austrians, we have Hungarians, then we have these other Slavs, and now in Nigeria we have the Hausas, we have the Yorubas, we have the Igbos, the Wazobias, we call them. And at the end of the day, nobody will give me, as an Ihoro man from the Niger Delta, from Rivers State, my own special treatment I deserve. Nobody can treat me the way I would treat myself. So I don't see why we should continue to play along in this system. Austria-Hungary broke because they couldn't manage this extreme heterogeneous setup, and Nigeria will break as well because Nigeria can never manage this extreme heterogeneous setup. We're all deceiving ourselves. We're all trying to save what we cannot save. It's going to break one way or the other. There is no way. Yes.
I was saying that I do think, even though what you're saying is highly relevant, and I do think Nigeria's situation is particularly perilous. I think we're getting a little bit knuckled down to the original concept of this conversation, which is about nations and ethnic group nations across Africa and stuff. Really,
what is a nation? What is the definition of a nation? Can you give me that?
It'll be a group of people believing in one ideology, or believing in one ideology, going in one kind of direction. Ideally, that's what I'll consider a nation.
Well, a nation is a group of people that are related to each other. I think you know
Okay,
that.
that's. I think that maybe that's then a different way of putting into it. But the term of nation is above that. If you're talking about a group, like I would say an ethnic group, that's what I would relate what you just said.
A
But
nation
when I
is
think of nations,
officially
I'm thinking of nations with differences of different backgrounds, but in together as one place.
is officially observed as a group of people who share the same cultural identity. They share the same
But
language,
in
culture, and
the other conversation that we had, the other conversation that you had with I forgot his name now, the guy from Ghana, he also said that when does this stop? When you talk about that people identifying as groups, because everyone comes from somewhere. So at what point does this stop?
You got to
So,
make
like,
you make a great point with that.
Is the rule that someone stay there for 500 years? Okay, now you're officially a group. Or is it 1,000 years? What defines your group? What makes you who you are? You were not born as who you are as a group. You were never born as who you are. You're a constantly merging group of people that merge into something else.
okay.
So when you're holding on to these things now, yeah, how does it end? How does it start? You know, because if you're being complex about the situation right now, if someone came in was more complex about it, they could say that you're not from where you are right now, and that you're from, I don't know, you're from middle of Chad. Modern day Chad is where you guys are originally from. And someone will say, no, I'm from the middle of modern day Congo. Like, everyone moved from somewhere to somewhere else. So at this point in time now, what happens next?
Right.
Let's
do this. Let Igho. I know he wanted to jump in, and then Emeka, you can respond. Igho, you there? Hold on one second. Are you there? Igho. We can't hear you. You gotta.
There you go. I think I was still on mute. This all goes back to, I mean, if we want to go far back, this is in response to George, we can go far back to ancient Egypt or before that, or between Kenya and Tanganyika. But I think we can clearly say we are Bantu, which goes back to how the whole conversation started. So if we start to identify with that identity, wouldn't that make us strong? Wouldn't that take away all this division? Wouldn't that give us one identity we can stand for and say this is who we all are?
I agree.
And eventually that will dissolve all the other subgroups that formed over time. This is what I'm trying to say.
But that's like that's then saying that we're all black.
Yeah.
Is that enough?
That's enough.
Wait, you want me to take stuff I would never take from my white racist imperialist from a black person just because he's black, and I would just garnish it with the title Pan-Africanism or what? I mean, you want me to accept oppression for my people?
Yeah, but hold on, Mecca. But the thing is, under Pan-Africanism, we want to get rid of the oppression that you're speaking of.
By oppressing me with Nigerian status quo.
No, we will get rid of that. Like, that's not, when we talk Pan-Africanism, we're not talking about still living in a system of subjugation like you guys are right now under Nigerian rule. That would be gone. That would be rid of.
What will be replaced with?
And Mecca, I don't know if you came in at the very beginning when I was talking about this, but I don't know if you heard about Bantu Federation. Did you hear me? Were you online at that point?
I don't think he was. He wasn't. Go ahead and explain Bantu Federation.
Okay, I'll do it very quickly so I don't bore anyone. I was saying the vision that I keep espousing is a Bantu Federation. You know, Africa is pretty much Afro-Asiatic and Bantu, sub-Saharan African. So imagine a future where sub-Saharan African, there are no borders, no countries, every independent nation, so there'll be Igbos, whatever, all these other ethnic groups or nations that will now form a kind of super state parliament into a one nation Bantu Federation, all the way from sub-Saharan Africa, all the way down to South Africa. Would that solve your sort of problem, where you have the power, obviously at your nation state level, but then you feed into the next level above is just a super state, and you feed into the super state. No countries, no regional countries. Just
can Can I jump in on this? Or Emeka, sorry, I've got something to say.
I want to see what Emeka thinks.
If there are no boundaries, we have no countries, right?
Yes, no countries.
Okay. No countries means no nations, right?
Just ethnic nations feeding into the larger country or federation, which would be Bantu Federation.
Okay, but we have the AU, right? The African Union. What's wrong with that? Why can't we have different nations with boundaries and we all meet in the AU?
You could do, but then again, it wouldn't be the AU anymore, would it? So I'm just talking about the kind of transformation into something else.
But you know where the
sorry to interject. Let me just jump in something quickly. But everybody on the continent doesn't identify with Bantu. The Ethiopians don't describe themselves as Bantu. Somalians don't describe themselves as Bantu.
I brought that up when he first mentioned the Bantu. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
But go ahead.
The Egyptians don't describe themselves as Bantu. So who are these Bantu people you're referring to?
Sub-Saharan, all the way down. So
That's fine.
Forget Saharan countries, Sub-Saharan all the way up. And as I said at the beginning, Saharan countries already don't identify as African. A lot of them, they pretty much, as I said, they were the Arab League.
Why I don't get this discussion now? Yeah, it's almost like it's a void of military understanding and how things are actually going to pan out if you have these ideas. Like, if you have, okay, everyone splits up into own groups, that's fine. Okay, we're all kind of functioning at a level. Okay, when you start developing things,
before you continue, you use the word splits up a lot. We should always remember this is not splitting up to just be separate. This is coming down to individual powers and understanding, and then rejoining on our own terms. So we use the word split, but we never say rejoining. We use the word split or break up, and we never talk about coming together. This is about coming together a different way, a way we would have done it ourselves without the Europeans forming us. That's what I'm saying. No one is saying just split up, break up, everyone hate each other. No.
Sometimes,
but that's
sometimes
it's not about. I don't see it. When I say splitting up, I mean I'm just talking literally in the terms that people are in their own groups. Because if we're not in their own groups,
but they really are. They are in their own groups, even in countries.
Right now, I would say typically, okay, to use an example, yeah, I would say many Nigerians in these groups here are more Nigerian than they are the ethnic group. Igbos are more Nigerian than they are Igbo. Orobos are more Nigerian than they are Orobo. So why are we discussing this stuff when the people who potentially could be in these groups here are actually more of a nation state? They got more of a nation state personality than they do of their cultural background. This is this evolution of people, because like, okay, even if you have people split up into certain groups now, right? Okay, how are we going to govern our own development? For instance, how would people improve in certain things? Like, okay, I don't know, like an invention comes about. Okay, you have an invention. Let's go down to ground level, right? Just to make it easier. Yeah? Someone invents paper, okay, and the paper that was made is in now what would be modern day Ivory Coast. Is he now going to start selling it to you guys so you guys will all make him richer? Yeah, because now you're not a country no more. You're not a nation, so the nation isn't kept within a border. It's now kept within an ethnic group. For instance, just say for instance. So now that person would now be the purveyor of paper. And so you would have to go to him all the time just to get paper. And that's fine. But that resentment, yeah, is exactly how Europeans come into the group, because they now offer an avenue. This is what white people done back in the day. They offered an avenue for other groups to have over other groups. And that's what created the division. Am I lying?
George, what you were saying, look, Belgium has 5 different nationalities.
That's because they are all the group. Okay, go on.
Hey, real quick, guys, I have to go and get my son. We want to continue this conversation. Don't hang up. I will be back. Give me 20 minutes, guys. Please continue the conversation for everybody who's joining the chat room. But I will be back in 20 minutes. Don't go anywhere unless you guys just have to. Is that okay?
All right, cool.
Yeah, cool.
All right, I'll be right back. All right.
Look, The thing that gets me, George, is you keep saying, how could we develop? How could we create something? How could we use our ingenuity? That would happen because you're functioning as a subset of a bigger nation state. Doesn't mean you can't do all those things. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. China is an example. China is a huge country. Even India. You know how many groups are in India? How many independent states and people that speak different languages that operate autonomously? It's the same thing. There's a super state, but they're all independent at those levels. And it is 1 billion people. 1 billion people. That's like a federation, a true federation.
Both people, both groups, both major nations. China, for instance, now, yeah, the only reason China is because of what it is right now is because they have gone through a valley that we are not willing to go through. The valley is that some people need to shut the hell up and succeed to the other groups that know what they're doing. Some groups don't know what they're doing. And I don't understand why this is so hard to understand. This is why China is where it is now. Some people got beaten up, in lack of a better word, yeah, they got beaten up, got sat in the corner, while other groups who did know what they're doing developed the nation, and then now they're reintegrated at a point now where everyone looks like they're all winning. But that has to happen. If you're not willing to do that, then you're not going to get to the next stage.
That's not the history of Africa, George.
It's not the history of Africa. It's not an African thing. It's a world history thing. It's a human behavior thing, bro. If I'm using a Hoover to hoover the floor, and you're brushing the floor with a straw, with a straw broom, my Hoover's better than your straw. You can't tell me that you should have your straw broom and I should have my Hoover. We're gonna use a Hoover from now on, and that's how we move forward. We're not going to sit there and half the house is dirty because you want to use a straw broom and my house is clean because I'm using a Hoover. We're going to learn to use a Hoover.
This is on the Bantu state, please. On the Bantu super mega nation.
Yes.
You know, I as a Niger Delta, I as a Rivers man, I have serious problem with the North. The North now, you want to add more of their people to a system with me. I'm having problems with the ones that are already there, and you're actually inviting more of them to come and have these extreme differences with the South, with my people. Is that not so?
They would be independent. They would be independent. The only benefit that they will get from being in this major or super state would be one army. Obviously, things to do with the territorial transport, communication, but in functioning day to day, you wouldn't have anything to do with any other people except you form alliances, treaties, and collaboration with those groups. And I said it would not be restricted to regions. So, if Igbo people find that they have rubber, and the Luo people in Kenya need rubber, both of you form an alliance. You're not restricted by any borders anymore. You don't have to have anything to do with anyone. You don't have anything to do. But at the same time, you meet at the super state Senate. You communicate, collaborate, and forge ways forward on things that matter to the whole continent. So right now, I feel what you're saying is you're trapped in having to forge policies with people in the North, which you don't feel you have any connection to, you have no similarities with, no common ground, and that is hard to deal with, I can imagine. But when you break open those borders and you make it free, you can look down south. You know, there are Yoruba people in Togo, there are Igbo people in Burkina Faso. So now they're just restricted by these lines. That's what I'm saying. I don't know if you get my point.
Oh, okay.
It's happened before. Let me just come in briefly. Okay, it sounds very idealistic, but it's happened before. Okay, when Mussolini invaded Ethiopia, so I like to look at things a bit more broadly. When Mussolini invaded Ethiopia, okay, and for the African Americans who are watching us, I want to also commend them for the role that they played during the battle between Ethiopia and Italy. When Mussolini invaded Ethiopia, he carved out certain parts of Ethiopia, which the leader, the Emperor Haile Selassie, could not do anything at that point. In 1953, after the Second World War had ended, he now tried to bring back the part of Ethiopia that had been taken away by centuries of, European imperialism, as well as Arab invasion. Don't forget that Ethiopians have been having running battles with their Arab neighbors for centuries. Okay, he tried to bring in that part, but they were not ready to integrate. They were not ready to integrate and become the larger part of Ethiopia. So they went into a 4-decade battle with Ethiopia, and that battle was a battle between Ethiopia and Eritrea that culminated to the point in 1991 when Eritrean forces entered into Addis Ababa and captured Ethiopia. So the idea that when we break down all these borders, all these nation states, we will now be able to integrate. We'll now be able to have ethnic groups with like mind. We have Kanuris, for example, in Nigeria. We have Kanuris in Chad. We have Kanuris in Niger. We have Fulanis in Nigeria. We have Fulanis in Guinea. Guinea, for our viewers, Guinea is the homeland, is the spiritual home of the Fulanis, the Futajelon. It's the home. But coincidentally, they are not the ethnic group in power. It is the Manikas. The Manika is the predominant ethnic group. The current president of Guinea, Alpha Conde, is Manika. So the Fulanis do not hold sway, even in Guinea-Bissau, in Guinea, where their spiritual homeland is. Okay? But I would say for Emeka, who has his misgivings about the Fulanis, Nigeria is the only place where we will say the Fulanis will be giving problems. There are no Fulani problems in Ghana. There are no Fulani. There are Fulanis there, but there are no Fulani.
They are not in Ghana. My people are not in Ghana. I'm talking about people. Why should I be talking about?
No, what I'm saying that I'm just trying to understand what I'm saying. They're not giving in terms of troubles, in terms of political tension. Exactly. In terms of political tensions, the only reason why I think that over time we began to see this political tension between the Fulanis in Nigeria and the other ethnic groups in the south is because of the Usman Danfodio revolution, Usman Danfodio jihad in 1804, which allowed the Fulanis to consolidate power in Nigeria and spread this power into different tributaries in Nigeria we today known as Emirates. So you have Emirates of Yola, Emirates of Kano, Emirates of whatever. Okay, so it allowed them to consolidate power, but outside Nigeria, which is their political where they hold political sway, they don't hold political sway even in their own homeland in Guinea, as I mentioned. Okay, so the idea that we will have a federation of all the Fulanis living in one configuration, I don't think that would happen. And I've pointed out an example of Ethiopia as a classic example. I equally pointed out an example. Shaka Zulu tried to do it in Southern Africa when he overran all the ethnic group, including the Ndebele and the Shona people in what we today known as Zimbabwe. But a king there, a king in Lesotho, was brave enough to stop the onslaught of Shaka Zulu, and he was able to bring the 5 ethnic groups that were living in that region together. That country today is now known as Lesotho. So the people, the King Moshoeshoe was one of the kings who resisted the imperialistic invasion of Shaka Zulu. So again, you can't.
I thought you were going to say Wakanda for a second.
No. I think it was from that. I think the script from that Black Panther was taken from Shaka Zulu and his battle with King Moshoeshoe of modern day Lesotho. So again, the idea of breaking down the current nation states and fusing them with the different, because we have Luos in Kenya, we have Luos in Tanzania, but because of the fact that the way Africa was essentially configured during the Berlin Conference, we have different ethnic groups that now fall into different nation states. But breaking down that nation state and fusing them, I don't think it's going to be as easy as you think.
Yeah, okay. So for a question so it's like a for and against kind of thing right now, yeah. I'll give it to Igho because I like the conversation of the Bantu as opposed to just talking about the Niger Delta. So for the Bantu nation, for instance, yeah, in your estimations, what groups do you see in Africa so far, tribes that are autonomously or show indications that they're looking after themselves and they have an ideology that requires separation from the rest of the group?
The point is not just to be separated from the group because you're better. The Bantu Federation, in my mind, is for the upliftment of all. There will be those. It's almost like a division of labor. So I understand Emeka's point. We don't feel people from the north are contributing much to the country. There's very low education. A lot of the resources are going up there, pretty much just financing.
Their liability. Let's just speak it out. Their liability.
Not Nigeria. Not Nigeria. I'm talking about groups in general.
Okay, group. Well, as I said, it's for the upliftment of everyone. So everyone has the expertise, and some groups, I feel, are not able to express themselves or utilize their full capacity or capability because they are restricted by nations. Nations would only pull on the resources they feel can best promote them, as you say, the Hoover. If they feel the Hoover is an example for oil. So in the case of Nigeria, oil is in the South. They neglected everything else that everyone else could do. And if I want to speak in favor of Igbos were very industrious people, right? They had a lot of, they do a lot of construction, but all that stuff was ignored. And then they focus on oil. And so now we come to a point where they're thinking, okay, now we need to start looking at the broom. We need to start looking at the dustpan. We need to start looking at everything else but the Hoover. So you cannot just focus on the best and the best and the best. You have to diversify. And that's the point. If then you want to diversify, you look at different groups. Some groups might be 800,000 in population, and they have no natural resources where they are. But where they're located, there's low education. Okay, if you want to take a factory there to make fabric or knitting, that would be the best place to take it. All of them get jobs.
So who decides?
You won't take it to a place where lots of people have got high level of education and everyone's got degrees to master's level.
Who decides that? Who decides that?
The people.
Who's the people? People decide to put a factory in that location.
Well, it happens now, doesn't it? It happens now.
That's because there's groups. There's either a group or body that's deciding that. Which person decides that? Okay, you have a business, yeah. For instance, you have a business, okay. You want to make T-shirts. You are in a certain region. You're going to put it in another region. Why? Because it's cheaper. The people are less educated. What does that mean? Because I mean, you put it there because maybe the labor is as good, but the people there are cheaper to pay for. But that would only be against the fact of the currency that's in that country.
That's the way business goes. Right now,
I know that's the way business goes. But if you're a business, okay, and you're gonna put your business in another location outside of your local region now, you're putting it there because one, the labor is cheap. The only reason the labor will be cheap is because compared to your currency, it's cheaper. Okay, so you're talking about people having to have either a lower cost of living in that area and having the same currency as you, or having another currency which your currency is better than, so that therefore it makes it easy for you to have people working there and sending stuff back to where you're from. No, but why would someone do that?
It's the same currency. It happens everywhere. It's the same currency, but obviously it's a different standard of living. There's no point when you don't have like malls and supermarkets that sell flat screen TVs up in somewhere like somewhere in the north. There's no point. You're not going to spend your money on flat screen TVs. You're going to spend on things you need to eat, and things you need to get a house. It happens everywhere, even in this country, in the UK.
So why am I going to do that? Why am I going to do that group of people a favor? You said they're not educated. Why would I mean, I get it that if they were educated, but why would I give it to them if they're not educated?
Why would you give it to them if they're not educated?
Yeah. Why would I give them work? Because they want
jobs. People want jobs. They want a livelihood.
So what they want jobs, but I've got my business. I want my business to work properly. I'm not going to give it to them because they need to. Why am I like that's like to have a group on its own now, yeah, or to have groups, yeah, means that you can at least the whole the Niger Delta argument is so you can preserve your group and uplift your group, right? Now we're going to uplift other groups now at the expense of our own group.
I'm not talking about Niger Delta. I'm talking about Bantu Federation.
Okay, even in the Bantu Federation style. Listen, let me say this again. Yeah, I'm not against what you're saying. I'm just trying to hash out the idea behind it, because these is like, even just generally Pan-Africans or non-Pan-Africanists, yeah, like to move properly in this African vision now, yeah, like we got to get over some of these large hurdles and be able to agree on it and move forward. Because if not, we're having this conversation. This conversation is an old conversation. You know, not in a bad way, but it's an old conversation. It's been had by many intellectual people that know of these things before. You know, Emeka is a perfect example. When I saw him today, I thought this is another intellectual person who has these ideas and, you know, and everything. But we have to hash out these things to make sure they make sense. And then if we understand it, move forward. So we're using an example of businesses right now and everything. I'm just saying that why would I, in my own, I now have my own group now, why would I take myself to go and help another group? And even if there were another group.
Okay, let me answer your question then.
Huh?
Let me answer your question. Why would you go and help another group?
Yeah.
Because you're African. That's the point.
Okay.
Bantu Federation is about Africa. We're still talking about groups and tribes. I'm not talking about that. I'm saying, first of all, everyone, for you to be part of a group, there are things that you are good at, things you possess. Your culture is a basis of what you are, your experiences and what you're good at. You know, till this day, you can pick people from different groups, and there's an expertise that comes from all those groups in every country. In every country. That's the basis. That's the basis. So all I'm saying is, even though, say, Igbos, for instance, are part of this Bantu Federation, and they should have no problem going to a Jukun person or a Tiv person's country if the Tiv people want to welcome them to come and create an industry there. In reverse, they might the Tiv people might want to do something else in Igbo land, and it's just mutual relationships. Mutual relationships.
So these groups are this was the other big one I had before. Okay, how do we identify that this group of people are allowed to call themselves a group?
We don't need to identify it. It's already there.
You can't.
About 10,000 of the whole sub-Saharan Africa. They're already there. They exist. They have a culture, a language, a type of food, a way of dance, a way of spiritual belief.
Jesus Christ! But that is crazy what he just said, man. These are not things to now divide a country on, man.
No one's talking. You're asking a question and you're answering the question somewhere else again. You just asked you asked the question directly. How do people define groups? I gave you the answer.
Yeah. But you wouldn't walk into a room and be like, okay, you're like this because of what you eat. It's just what you want to bring it down to. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm just saying, you want to make sure this whole thing's efficient, isn't it? That's what I'm asking. Just making sure is it this whole idea, even the Bantu idea of Bantu, is the question the question I'm ideally going to is that, is it efficient? Will it make things more efficient? Will people move faster? Will Africans move quicker with this idea? Or will only certain groups really benefit from this? Because if some groups here don't know what they're doing in general, I don't know why you think why they would now become quicker. They would now move quicker because they're on their own.
Because the Western countries, that's exactly how they functioned, and they have moved quicker. That's exactly how they function.
The only fact that some countries have moved. Like, when you say these countries, what do you mean? Like Lithuania? Like what country is moving fast like that? These are huge nations. You can't look at European nations are 20 million people.
Switzerland is not a huge nation. Switzerland
is one small example of a nation that is among. We're talking about Africa now.
I gave you one. You asked me, I gave you one. So tell me about Switzerland now. They don't have 400 ethnic groups in one country, right?
Okay, yeah.
They're one people. They're pretty much one people. So explain to me how Switzerland, a small country, managed to do it. They'd have no resources. Yes? No resources.
Liechtenstein has 36,000 inhabitants. Liechtenstein has 36,000 inhabitants, and I don't think they're bigger than Otubo. Liechtenstein is a nation between Austria and Switzerland. It's a small nation. They have
Okay.
1,000 inhabitants. That's it. 36,000 inhabitants. They have the largest per capita GDP in Europe. Very rich country, and they're Micronesia, and they're a nation. You know, they're a nation.
Mm-hmm.
So all I'm saying is everyone wants to give a reason why not to do this when what we've been doing so far hasn't been working. So why not just try something else? And I'm giving examples of countries that have smaller groups with less diversity as nations and are doing just fine. What is the fear?
I also asked you. I also asked what groups are actually doing something. Like, okay, for instance, now, yeah, I can just break it down for you. This is why. I mean, I say I haven't got a problem with this stuff. It can happen. I don't mind. But I'm asking about the sense of this whole thing because, like, okay, Igbos want to become their own group, right? Okay, you make your own Igbo land now, yeah. You guys, from my interpretation of Igbo.
I'm not Igbo, please. I'm
not saying you're Igbo. I'm not saying you're Igbo. Yeah, that's fine. I'm just saying. I'm using an example Igbo because we can relate to that, right? Okay. If from my understanding of Igbo land and Igbo culture, yeah, Igbos haven't done anything to prepare for any kind of like you're talking about. Okay, we're talking about maths. We're talking about creating like writing books in Igbo, for instance. You know what I mean? Like these things have not been done yet. So to talk about what we can, there's so much hypothesis in this stuff. Like which groups are actually doing these things, yeah? And especially in some of these regions we're talking about, some of these regions. If you look at somewhere like Liberia or modern day Ivory Coast or something like that now, yeah, these groups are not doing these things. So you can't then say, okay, you guys fix up and figure out things properly. Maybe one group, now Yorubas will definitely get on their way. They'll be happy. Oh, we're having a great time. We know what we're doing. We are aware of ourselves. We know what we're doing. You know what I'm saying? Other groups don't know this stuff.
George, not every group is going to do everything. The UK has not sent a rocket into space. Right?
Okay.
They have not sent a rocket into space. They've sent astronauts who jump on the bandwagon with Russia and everyone else in China and the Americas, but they have not sent a rocket into space. So how would you explain that? Because you seem to think that, oh, these guys have got everything right. They haven't got everything right. Something they stole.
Right. Who's who?
Exactly. So no, the argument that people need to be able to be writing their books in their language and all that is the only way that they can become a well-notified people. Doesn't make any sense.
No, it's not about being a well-notified people. It's about when you then start kind of cordoning off things to your own in this particular case it will be ethnic region. If we do it to a country, I get that it's a mix of people, yada yada yada, you know what I mean, using the best people. But to say that we're doing this based on the group versus who's the best people doesn't make sense to me. If you want to have an argument that let's figure out a way to get the best people together in one place, this is an amazing conversation. But to talk about we need to have a group of people that might not be that smart, might not know what they're doing, but put them together because they need to be together, it's silly. That's why to me that seems silly. Like if I'm trying to go somewhere, I would rather go to the people that know what they're doing. I'd rather if I know you're smart and I'm from Ghana, you're from Nigeria and you're smart, let's go together, let's do something, man. Not that, okay, we're both a robber, we stay together and figure it out. Why? Well, Africans don't need that right now. Africans need to be the best, needs to be together so they can actually develop something. Because we're talking about...
No one's saying that.
Saying what?
What you just said. But
I'm asking, but I said to you before in the earlier part of the conversation, about half an hour ago, is that if you split everything up now, they get people who are doing well have to meet somewhere, okay, and they need to be in a place where they're not pushed around because of any kind of ethnic differences, but the fact that they both are good at what they do. That should be the basis of how you should come together. Not because you can't move from, okay, I'm in Yoruba land. I'm just saying Yoruba and the Igbo just so it makes sense because many of us are Nigerian in this group, right? Okay. There's Yoruba land, there's Igbo land now. Okay. The person has to go from Igbo land to Yoruba land to start working on a project, but then he's surrounded by Yorubas. That's not fair. Do you know what I mean? You want to be somewhere it's almost neutral. So you'd have to create a neutral zone for them to just to move around in, because the guy's gonna have his own family one day. Not because he's gonna live there and go back home again. He's gonna have a family, and his family's gonna want to be somewhere, and their family's gonna go to a school somewhere. And if you're going to a school, then like, is it gonna be a Yoruba school? No. Is it gonna be an Igbo school? No. Like, why would you want to? If you're an Igbo person, why would you want to put your child into an Igbo school, into a Yoruba school? Then you have to go and search for an Igbo school so your child can grow up in the Igbo lifestyle while he's in a Yoruba land.
What you fear is already happening. That's how it is. The states in Nigeria are separated according to tribe or culture. That's how it is right now. Lagos is a predominantly Yoruba state. If you go to the east in Igbo land, they're predominantly Igbo states with Igbo schools and they teach. That's how it is now. So this fear you have, it's right here, right now. It exists. So there's nothing.
But this is not talking about Nigeria, though. This conversation is not about Nigeria. That's the thing. This conversation is about the group of African nations, and I'm trying to say that these differences are actually, I can understand them being in Nigeria, but across the African continent, they're not as much of a big deal. This need to have the differences there, you know, like the nations or people that want to fight for these things and fight for the division are almost slowing themselves down by the fact that they're not focusing on what needs to be focused on. To focus on the splitting up of nations as a way to improve the bunch of people that are there for Africans, not Nigerians. It doesn't make sense. If you want to split up Nigeria and do whatever you want to do, fine. Nigerians will hit their own hurdles again, or whatever group that splits up, Delta State will hit their own problems again. Because the next stage that blacks need to reach has not been reached yet. And it's not fully functioning in itself. And that should be the goal. How can we move towards a fully functioning black state where blacks all over the world are waiting for one group to show us how it's done, man? Do you know what I mean? That's the truth. Black nations all over the world are waiting for one nation to show them this is how it's done. They will follow suit. Okay, that nation is gonna come from the smartest people or the best bunch of people they can get in that vicinity to create something that people can then mirror. You're actually seeing that Nigerians are like the top purveyors of what it would be to be an African nation, even though internally you might see all forms of problems. Yeah, but from the outside, Nigerians are great people. Nigerians are great. They have one of the best models of Africanness that you would ever see out of Africa in the next century.
Great how?
And they're only going to get higher.
What do you mean? How is Nigeria great?
See, because you're in Nigeria, you don't see it from the outside. Yeah, many African nations haven't got nowhere near the level of stature that Nigerian has. When you see successful Africans outside of Africa, they're more likely than any other group to be Nigerian. See, you're laughing because you don't know them, do you?
Oh my God, this is great. Oh,
it's crazy, but it's also true. It's also true. Of all African nations, Nigerians are the most entrepreneurial, the most successful Africans we have in Africa.
And we're the largest.
Nigeria represents. I've always said this. Yeah, Nigeria, regardless of how malfunctioned, how malnourished, how deformed, how chaotic, how corrupt, how defective, whatever kind of negative vocabulary you can come up with, Nigeria represents. If there's any country in the world, both in Africa and in the diaspora, including the Caribbean, yeah, if there's any country that has the potential to become that beacon that all black people around the world will look up to, that country is Nigeria.
God forbid. It's a very bad example.
Okay.
Nigeria is a bad example because Nigeria,
if only you know the role Nigeria. If imagine, if I was telling Igho the other time, I was telling him, I said, it's easy for people to be in the country and not understand how that country itself is keeping other countries from disintegrating. Countries around Nigeria depend heavily on Nigeria. When Nigeria went, I'll give you a typical example. When Nigeria went to a recession 2 years ago, the level of poverty in Chad and Niger skyrocketed. Those countries depend heavily on food that is being smuggled from Nigeria into their region. You can imagine when chaos literally breaks out in Nigeria. Nigeria disintegrates. If it disintegrates peacefully, that's fine. But if it disintegrates into chaos and anarchy, I'm afraid that not only the entire West Africa will disintegrate, but Central Africa as well will follow suit. That is how key Nigeria is. So I think just like we had the I'm going to use your example, Emeka, just like we had the Austro-Hungarian Empire in the past, okay? We should not make the kind of mistakes that the Archduke Ferdinand made. There is need for the leaders in Nigeria to put in place measures that will allow ethnic groups or regions within the states to have autonomy. That I believe will douse
everybody.
Douse the autonomy.
I'm back now. Can I ask one question?
Okay.
How would the Bantu Federation cooperate with the West? Because obviously the West has its puppet strings and is heavily involved in the African Union. So what role will the West play in the Bantu Federation? But go ahead and finish your statement to the previous question. I just got back.
Good morning, so I'm going. Thanks, guys.
Okay, all right, Emeka, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, I'll let Naomi continue. I'll just say that real quick because this is obviously a vision that I've had in my head. I'd like to follow the China model and literally shut off from the rest of the world for a period of time, and develop to a point where we're self-sustainable, self-sufficient, and then reconnect with the West on our own terms. That's what I would do.
Okay, well, let me just come in briefly. I don't think we should follow the Chinese model and shut off. Okay, what Africa is doing now, I don't know if you've been following the events in the last couple of years or in the last few years. What we're trying to do now is to fast track regional and continental integration. Most importantly, fast track how we begin to trade with ourselves. So I will not advocate that we cut off from the rest of the world and follow the Chinese model. Again, I think we've discussed this in the past. China cut off from the world, not because they wanted to cut off from the world, but because the West placed sanctions on them. They did not choose to cut off from the world. I
didn't know that. I didn't know.
Yes, they didn't cut off from the world deliberately. So a lot of people have this misconception that China does cut off from the world. No, Mao Zedong seized power in China, drove the West out of China. Yeah. So if you watch footages or if you read books of how China was pre-Mao, you will see that the West had significant presence in China.
Right.
But when Mao Zedong and his communist rebels overthrew the Western puppets that they had in China, yeah, they chased the Western puppets there to a tiny island off the coast of China that we today know as Taiwan. Okay, so they fled to that island and they sought refuge there. The West then recognized that tiny island, Taiwan, as the Republic of China. Okay, that they recognized them as China. So they didn't even recognize mainland China as China. They recognized the leaders in Taiwan as China and they continue to trade with them. Okay, so Mao, most sanctions was placed on China for 20 years. Until Nixon went to Beijing in 1971 to meet Mao. That was when the West then resumed trade and business and diplomatic discussions with China. So China did not cut off from the West. Okay, they did not. Sanctions were placed on the West. I will not advocate the same model. I will say let's consolidate on how we are going to move towards regional integration and how we can trade with ourselves. A continental free trade area was created last week, I believe. Okay, this is geared towards boosting trade. Okay, Africa, the way it's structured in such a way that resources are supposed to be extracted from it. So it's not structured to grow. What we are trying to do now is to position the continent so that the continent can grow for itself and its people.
Thank you. What about from a military? I would say from a military point of view. Now, again, just out of clarification, Northern Africa, including Ethiopia, Eritrea, Somalia, are they part of the Bantu Federation? Yes or no? So Morocco, Algeria, even Mauritania, because I know they're heavily Arab influenced. Well, but that's not really considered Northern Africa. But the Northern Africa, Tunisia, those Northern African countries, are they included in the Bantu Federation?
No.
Okay, so if we have a situation like in Libya, like we had a couple years ago with Gaddafi, and the West decides it's time for a Gaddafi type leader or a leader in North Africa to go, do we get involved or do we let the West do what they do?
The problem with the African Union and Africa having a formidable force is down to funding. Funding remains one of the problems the African Union has. Okay, a lot of the countries in the African Union do not pay their dues. So the African Union, as we know today, is largely being funded by a handful of countries, and it depends heavily on external funding. So, for example, the African Union headquarters in Addis Ababa we have today was built by the Chinese.
Right.
And not too long ago, we read in the papers that bugs were found on the computers in Addis Ababa. So essentially, the Chinese were using the computers that they donated to the Secretariat in Addis Ababa to spy on Africa.
And I want to say China's building what, an ECOWAS headquarters too, or they're building something else.
Yeah, they did say they were going to help to build ECOWAS, but I don't know if that's been action. Yeah, but you're right. I did read in the papers that they suggested we have the current ECOWAS secretariat in Abuja, though. It's big, so I don't know if the Chinese are going to build another one. But yeah, Chinese were essentially spying on African leaders on the secretariat that they help the Africans build. Again, this is largely due to funding. When you have an organization that's supposed to be getting funding, robust funding from 54 to 55 of its members, the funding is not flowing. It creates a vacuum for foreign powers and foreign organizations to begin to maneuver its objectives and its overall direction. So that's what we see in the African Union today. That's why we see the African Union is not a largely effective organization. That's what we see, most importantly, when Gaddafi, when it was time for Gaddafi, when Gaddafi fell, instead of the African Union to step in and prevent NATO and the West from coming in, they largely couldn't do anything. They created a vacuum, or combined with the fact that the continent has a plethora of inept leaders. We couldn't do anything, and then the NATO went in there and just took out Gaddafi. But the solution to that problem, I think, is working on how we can continue to fund the African Union to be able to play a more leading role in the challenges that the continent face. There are crises in Somalia. There are pockets of crisis in Congo. There are Islamic insurgencies in Mali and parts of Senegal. There's the Boko Haram insurgency in Nigeria and or in parts of Chad and Niger. The African Union should be able to play a key role in resolving all those crises, rather than creating a lacuna for foreign powers to exploit. As I speak to you now, we have Chinese military troops active in Djibouti. We have Turkish military troops active in Djibouti. We have UAE foreign troops active in North Africa. We have even Japanese military troops active in Africa. We have French military troops active in West Africa. We have U.S. drone base in Niger and in Somalia. So all this,
even India has a base. India
Even India is negotiating to have a military base in Seychelles. So again, if the African Union is giving the kind of funding and everybody's playing the role that they need to play, then we won't have the opportunity of creating an avenue where all these foreign powers, again, I think it's largely due to that absence of Pan-Africanism, because everyone is largely focused on their nation states. You take care of your own business and I take care of my own business. That's, I think, is the mentality that is prevalent across different African countries when it comes to discussing continental issues. They largely leave those issues to the big boys, i.e., South Africa, Egypt, and Nigeria, to resolve.
I would just say last is I think Pan-Africanism is dead. Sad to say, and it needs a revival. I think it's dead. They're just disparate, smaller parts and groups and portions of people who are championing it. But on the continent where it needs to be the loudest voice, it is dead. And we need to start acknowledging it that way, because it should be at the heart of what the African Union is doing, and it's not. It's not at all. It's completely dead.
That's why we need to continue to create this necessary awareness for Africans in Africa and for Africans in the diaspora. African Americans are watching this. We have Afro Latinos. We have African of African descent in South America, in Brazil, who are looking for a day and time when the continent will begin to put its acts together. Everyone is looking on us to get our acts together. And maybe that time will come when those in the diaspora can now begin to look at a time when they will begin to return. I saw a video of yourself that you took when you went to the African Renaissance Monument in Dakar.
Yes. Yeah,
and that was really, really moving. I've always seen that monument, especially on us on Dark. We have, if you look at our cover page for Dark, it has that logo. But you went inside that monument, and watching that your video gave me an insight on how that video is, and it shows you what visionary leadership can do. You see, the president of Senegal was able to put that statue in Dakar, and from what I gathered from that video, that statue has a shelf life of 1,200 years. So essentially, that statue could be standing till the year 3,200 as a symbol of African Renaissance. Son, these are the flashes of the kind of leadership that we desperately need in the continent that sadly we don't have.
Absolutely. Make sure everybody, I just put it in the chat room as well. Everyone who's watching this stream or who watches the stream, please subscribe to Diaspora African Renaissance channel. Please go there and subscribe to the page. Love what the brothers are doing. So make sure you guys do that. When at the end of the stream, or do it now. So yeah, make sure you guys do that. So what's the end game for Bantu Federation? And say Bantu Federation gains steam, which it will. Do you think the African Union will consider it a threat? Meaning, can the African Union and the Bantu Federation work side by side?
I would say no, it can't work side by side. The only way it can work side by side is if it becomes a civic organization, so made by civilians outside, and have and grow to have tentacles in various African countries and be a kind of allied organization. But side by side, no. Remember, African Union was once OAU, Organization of African Unity, which morphed into African Union. And this is why I feel it's going to morph into the Bantu Federation. It might be under another name. It might be the African Federation at that point, AF. It might be the United States of Africa. Who knows? But at the heart of it is what I'm seeing here, that it will be for Bantu peoples, because the North African countries have an allegiance not to Africa, but to Arabia and Arab countries.
All right, cool, man. I mean, everyone, thank you so much for joining us. Let's see if we have any questions in the chat room. Did anybody want to follow up with that to that question at all?
What's the question?
Will the African Union feel threatened by an organization like the Bantu Federation?
I always thought it was about the same name really. I thought it was the same body, but with a new name and a new focus really. I guess by calling it Bantu, it kind of just says sub-Saharan Africa, which excludes the Arabs. I guess by saying Africa, it covers all of Africa, so it includes Arabs. So it's kind of it's meant to be there to focus on just the Africans that are actually African and stuff, really, which I think is important. And for that, I mean, I definitely agree with the idea that of a African or Bantu, sub-Saharan African focused group being ahead of being ahead. I also don't mind the idea of multiple of, I guess, the dispensing of borders. The route I would take would not be to go down to ethnic group, but more to homogenize the groups into larger nations and rebrand them however they want to rebrand it, so they can have a wider pool of people to choose from. You can choose how you want with that, really. But as I say, I'm down with the idea of Bantu of a Bantu Federation. How you get there is, my route would be to homogenize some of the countries that are there. So some of the smaller nations work or become part of the bigger nations. Maybe if there's an issue with the namings and stuff like that, maybe change the name and move forward with that, really, rather than, because I mean, I find that, you know, if you look at map of Africa, you see there's many small nations which are they're just there because of political reasons, you know. But as far as moving forward and doing anything for themselves, it's as slow as everyone else is, regardless of the size they have, you know. And so, what's most important to me is that you just find you find the best way to find the best talent in your nation, which is why countries like America are shining beacons again, even if they're messed up and everyone says all kind of trash about them and Trump this, Trump that. You go to America. America's a great nation. You know this, I know this, you know, and part and parcel of that is the fact that it allows a lot of talent to rise up to the front, you know. And if we want to be a balanced African nation, we have to find ways to bring the talent to the forefront.
Cool.
Yeah.
So someone in the chat room's asking, what kind of political system would they implement for the Bantu Federation?
Parliamentary system.
Okay. So that's similar to what's in Britain right now?
Yes, because in Britain, as you see, up and down the country, about 60+ million people. They've got about 600 MPs, so it's almost like one person to 100,000. And representing all parts of the country, and they all sit down at one table, and it's just them to the prime minister. They put their questions directly to the prime minister. It's 2 steps from the common man straight to the top. That's all it should be, not from local government to state government, from state government to senator, from senator to the top. No, it should be straight direct rule. You straight to your local representative, that one straight to the top, and that's it.
All right, perfect. I mean, is there anything else? And again, everybody, thank you so much for coming on and joining us. What we'll do, we'll go ahead and close out, unless there's something else you guys want to speak on. But if not, I mean, everybody on the panel, please, you know, give your contact information, and also just close out, and you know, we'll go ahead and sum everything up and end everything.
All right, then. It was a pleasure.
No problem. Thank you.
Goodbye.
It was an absolute pleasure. You can follow us on at DAR channel. That's at DAR channel, or one word. That's on Twitter, and on Instagram it's D_A_R_ channel, and I think Facebook it's DAR channel again. Thanks a lot. I really enjoyed it. Thanks for having us on the show.
And everybody, please make sure you go and subscribe as well.
Yeah, please do.
Thanks, guys.
No problem. Everybody, again, thank you for joining us. Make sure you go to search for Uhuru at Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter, and Facebook. Also, somebody has a great question. How would you guys deal with the white South African situation that's going on right now? I think they all went off. Man. Yeah, they all went off. Sorry about that, Sultan. Man, Sultan asking all these questions late. But everybody, thank you so much for coming on. Search for Uhuru at Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter, and Facebook. Also, make sure you go to dynasamir.com, go to searchforhoover.com, and then go to Amazon.com and search your name, Dynasamir. Please buy a book. Thank you so much for coming on. Till next time. Peace.